All right, Larry Krueger here from the Pig in a Pickle Krug Show with a little 49er video. Make sure you check out Pig in a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. They're in Emeryville and in Corte Madera. They're in Corte Madera, open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. And check them out in Emeryville as well, open Wednesday through Sunday. All right. A lot of talk. Let's do a little Niner video on the latest from the owners' meetings in Arizona. Kyle Shanahan spoke today. The big news, really two quotes. One, that both Sam Darnold and Trey Lance will be taking first team reps coming training camp this summer. That I thought was a revelation. The other one was from Kyle, who said, with Brock out, Trey Lance has a chance to regain that QB1 job with the 49ers. So I think the question has to be asked, how do the 49ers really feel about Trey Lance at this point? I don't think we really have a clear answer on that. They refer to him, Kyle has referred to him as a dual threat quarterback. When he's talking about Brock Purdy, he talks about Brock as a quarterback. But with Trey, he's a dual threat quarterback. Brock has mobility, Trey has mobility, and yet Trey's a dual threat and Brock's just a regular quarterback. So the other question is, why are they having Trey Lance split reps with Sam Darnold this summer? Sam Darnold has had 55 NFL starts, and he is last in the NFL in passer rating at 78.2, last in the NFL among quarterbacks who have competed this much with 59.7% completion percentage, third worst interception percentage in the NFL. He ranks last in average yards per attempt. He's had really one positive stretch over his entire NFL career, and it came last year with the Carolina Panthers when he went 4-2 down the stretch with them. Now, at the same time, the fact that Lance and Darnold are now sharing reps, you got to wonder how they feel about Lance. He's only really had 4 career NFL starts. John Lynch stated that, a couple things in at the combine about a month ago that really made me go, wow. He said, Trey needs to play. Trey's got to play. That's the challenge because we have a team that's ready to go. And the obvious implication is that Trey needs time to develop and he's not ready to play. And that his timeline, Lynch was suggesting, does not fit the 49ers timeline, that he needs time on the field to develop and that they've got a team that's ready to win now. And the implication is clear that Trey's not ready to be on the field leading them to victories now. And then John followed that up with, his talk yesterday here in Arizona about, we love Trey on our team right now. The right now being the key part of it. So what does that mean? If you really love Trey, wouldn't you just come out and say, we really love Trey? That's it. We really like Trey on our team right now. Ding, 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 ding. That what? Wait a second. Why would you say right now? We really like Trey. We really like Trey on our team. We really like Trey on our team right now suggests that that's going to change in the future and that you may not like him as your quarterback on your team in the future. You like him right now, but what about the future? And then Kyle says our feelings about Trey have not changed. Okay, but you traded an awful lot to move up into round 1 to get him at the top of the draft. And now he's competing with Sam Darnold, who's washed out of the Jets, washed out of the Panthers, and has some of the worst statistics in the entire league. And now him and Trey are splitting reps in camp. And with the idea being the winner can be number 2 to Brock Purdy. And then Kyle Shanahan also referenced that he probably is going to go with 2 quarterbacks. So now He's brought in a third quarterback in a year where Trey Lance is finally healthy and desperately needs every rep he can possibly get his hands on. And now you've introduced a third quarterback to your quarterback room prior to the draft, and you're still stating that you may go with two quarterbacks. I mean, the implications are totally clear. They're getting ready to trade Trey Lance. So I don't, I'm, this, the whole thing makes me nervous because the 49ers track record in this regime at evaluating quarterbacks is hit and miss. They traded up for CJ Beathard. They willingly bypassed evaluating Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes because they wanted Kirk Cousins. They went with Jimmy Garoppolo, but they also went with Brian Hoyer. You almost get the feeling they lucked into Brock Purdy. Ultimately, they get responsibility for it because they're the ones who drafted him. But now with Kyle coming out and saying both Darnold and Lance will take first team reps, but our feelings with Lance haven't changed. I think ultimately, if you said, what's going on here, Krug, make sense of it for us. I think that the 49ers can say, and Kyle Shanahan can look the cameras in the eye and say, our feelings on Trey haven't changed. Why? Because they like his long-term potential and they like him as a person. And they like, several of the traits he has as a person. So they like those traits when they drafted him. In Kyle's mind, they still like those traits today. They thought he was going to be good long-term when they drafted him. They think he's going to be good long-term today. But to say that our feelings haven't changed, I think is a little disingenuous, to be honest. Why? Because if Trey Lance really were the future of the franchise, are you bringing in Sam Darnold? And then you're going to give up the starter reps, the crucial reps that Trey needs to develop. You're going to give half those reps to Lance and the other half to Sam Darnold. That suggests your feelings on Trey may have changed. And I think when Kyle Shanahan says our feelings on Trey haven't changed, I think that's just his way of being very consistent and trying to be transparent to other teams. But I think the 49ers, whether it be internally, whether it's been, whispered or shouted, I think they've allowed other teams around the league with people that they trust. And you got to remember, there's a number of people around the league that are now in positions where John Lynch could say, "Hey, look, I don't want to be on record as we're shopping this player. We don't want to be on record as shopping the player. But just between me and you, Ran, if you offer me X, you can have him because we're going with Brock Purdy. And we just brought in Sam Darnold, and we may draft another quarterback. And our head coach is still talking about going with two quarterbacks. And so Purdy's the one, and that's clear. And now it sounds like if I was Sam Darnold, I would feel more secure than Trey Lance. And Sam Darnold should have no reason to feel more secure than Trey Lance, other than the fact that he was brought in most recently. He was handpicked, and he's been negotiating through his agent with Shanahan and Lynch. And maybe in those negotiations, hey, this is our stance publicly, but privately, Sam's going to get a shot at that number 2 job. But as far as how do I make sense of today's news and Kyle's quotes that both Darnold and Lance will take first team reps? I look at that as things have changed in their thinking about Trey Lance. Otherwise, Sam Darnold's not even here. And even if Sam Darnold was here, if he was really here the way a lot of people billed it, a couple weeks ago when it was announced, he's just here as the third string guy. Brock's the 1, Trey's the 2, and Darnold's the obvious 3. Well, Shanahan just basically told you that Darnold and Lance will be fighting it out for that number 2 job. And that, when Kyle comes out and says, "Hey, with Brock being out, Trey's got a chance to regain the quarterback 1 job." I think that's what you say when you're being cagey and you still want your price in a trade for Trey Lance. But all the indications are that, I mean, they're looking at quarterbacks in the draft. They've brought in handpicked Sam Darnold to add to this team and gave him decent money, up to $11 million in incentives. And they're still talking about potentially going with 2 quarterbacks on the roster. But they're showing up interest Utah State's quarterback Bonner. They're standing right there on the sidelines watching Tanner McKee work out at Stanford. It could be their just every year due diligence in the draft, but it very well could be, and it very much looks like to me, like Brock Purdy when he gets healthy is their 1, Sam Darnold is going to be the 2, and they're going to draft a 3rd quarterback. And that 3rd quarterback is going to be maybe on the roster, maybe on the practice squad, but that 3rd quarterback is going to be on the team. So what does that mean for Trey Lance? I think John Lynch said it a month ago. Trey needs to play. That's the challenge. We have a team that's ready to go. Well, based on what I've heard from Shanahan and Lynch, I would say Trey, it might be time for Sam Darnold. I don't know if I want to compete to be the backup. I think I'd rather have a fresh start with an organization that really believes in me and is going to give me the next 2 years to figure it out while playing. I think that can happen in Tennessee. That can probably happen in a couple spots around the league. Probably isn't going to happen in San Francisco. So that's my take on the Shanahan talk today, was that there's one quote you ought to listen to and the other quote you ought to filter. The quote you ought to listen to is both Darnold and Lance will take first team reps at quarterback this summer. It was a direct question from Grant Cohn. It was a direct answer from Kyle Shanahan. That's the quote from Shanahan that you ought to believe. The one you got to filter is, with Brock out, Trey's got a chance to regain that quarterback 1 job. I think that's what you say when you want to get your price in a trade. I realize there's cap implications that could affect a trade before June 1st. Still think the 49ers have enough wiggle room on the cap where they can absorb those cap implications, spread out the pain, and move down the road. And to me, based on what I'm hearing, based on what I'm reading, based on what I'm seeing, I think Trey Lance gets traded on draft day. All right, thanks for watching the Krug Show videos. We'll have more on the 49ers and, really their off season right up through the draft, into minicamp, into training camp, and into next season. So keep it locked right here on the Krug Show on YouTube. And check out Pig in a Pickle, the best barbecue in Northern California. They're in Emeryville and they're in Corte Madera, open 7 days a week. And thank you for supporting the Krug Show on YouTube.